Chiamo Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut, Eneye, Ptah, Medinde, Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan, Aakhuamuman Amaurka Atifi Mu, oh-jee. That means greetings to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people, meaning Africans, black people. Today is Ptah, Friday. My name is Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan of the Akwamu Nation in North America. What we want to do today is, again, we want to update the Oman, the community, about our activities since our last update. Our year began on September 22nd, 2014, in the Akhan, Aakhuamuman calendar. We begin our new year on the first day of Atemet, or autumn, the first full day of the autumn equinox. That was September 22nd this year. That was our first day of 13,014. So since that time, we did a blog on November 1st, updating the Oman on our activities, talking about the different places that we have gone, the teachings that we were giving out, the different presentations we've been doing, and we wanted to update the community since that time, since November 1st, to give you a sense of the kind of activities we've been engaged in and what we will be having coming up in the near future. Since November 1st, we've gone to Dallas. We've presented in Dallas on the Okra complex, the soul of Akhan. We also went to Virginia. We presented on that topic as well. We were in Knoxville, Tennessee the following week. We were also in Philadelphia, Hartford, Connecticut, and Washington, D.C. All of that since November 1st. We've been presenting on not only the Okra complex, the soul of Akhan, talking about the nature and function of the Kra, the soul, the divine consciousness, the divinity that dwells within each and every Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African black person, and how to align yourself with that indwelling force and nature that was assigned to us by the Supreme Being, Amenet, Amen, Nyamewa, Nyame, Mawu, and Lisa, and so forth. We also talked about the nature and function of our relationship with the ancestresses and ancestors, the Nananom Samampo, and the Abosom, the forces that govern creation, and how to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order, with Inyamewa, Inyame, and Sheshe, so that we can support Amain Sesiu, or a nation-building process. So we talked about that. We also dealt with the Uben Sheng, the ancestral summons, which deals with the nature and function of our ancestral religious practices, their functionality. We don't engage in ritual practices for pure symbolism. If we don't receive, process, and transfer energy in a measurable fashion for our own benefit, then we don't engage in any practice that does not accomplish that. So in the Uben Sheng, the ancestral summons, we go into detail about the nature and function of libation, ancestral and deity possession, ancestral and deity communication, nature worship, shrines, all kinds of ritual activities, the major ritual activities that we engage in, and their functionality and their validity in our culture. How we can incorporate law and restore balance where imbalance has occurred. That's the essence of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit ancestral religion. The ritual incorporation of divine law, the ritual restoration of divine balance. And when we can restore order to ourselves, restore balance to ourselves, then we can move forward in the nation-building process in an intelligent fashion. So we talked about that and what we have done at every event. All of the cities we've been to since the beginning of our year, September 22nd, Houston, Philadelphia, Dallas, Knoxville, Tennessee, Hartford, Connecticut, Washington, D.C., Virginia, Delaware, the various places we've gone, we have been able to give free copies of the softcover version of our books to everyone who attended the presentation. We don't charge for presentations. With regard to the way we approach GUAMU KASA, public speaking, we do not charge the Oman, the community, to receive your own ancestral wisdom that you inherited by blood. So we don't charge for that, and we've been able to give away with the support of the community free copies of the soft cover versions of both the Okra Complex, the Soul of Akhan, as well as Uben Shang, the Ancestral Summons. And we endeavor to do the same thing in all of our upcoming presentations. All of the PDF versions of our texts, our books, our publications, we have about 12 books, 50 research articles. We have a number of videos, about 40 videos, most of them with regard to the instructional videos, about 30 of those. Most of them are about 2 hours each. We have about 10 hours of audio. All of those publications, video, audio, books, articles, are all free downloads from our website. But we also, in addition to that, when we go out and do presentations, when we receive support from the community, then we can give soft cover versions. Some people don't have access to the internet. Some people don't have access to printing, where they can print out, you know, all these books and all these articles and, you know, 1,000+ pages of information. So we can give out these books for free, and we have been able to do that. We're going to continue with that process. We refer to it as the free books, the free workshops for Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut movement. It's a movement to disseminate free information to the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut community. So our next upcoming events, we are working on scheduling events in Arizona, in Canada, in Alabama, in Florida, Chicago, New York, New Jersey. We're looking at a number of different places. People have shown interest, so we will be posting those dates as they come. Look at the website, GUAMU KASA, Odwirafo.com /GUAMU KASA.html, and we will update you. Check the website frequently. Some of the most recent publications we will also be speaking on. Of course, we have the fundamental publications that many people are aware of, the Kukutuntun, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, where we show the cosmological foundation of creation. We also break down in detail how Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Jesus, Muhammad, all these characters are fictional characters. They never existed of any race whatsoever at all. They were not black, they were not white, they're purely fictional. So we go into detail about that in the Kutuntun. We also have the More Means Dead publication, where we go into detail showing the etymological and cosmological origin of the term More, showing that it means dead. And we've had a number of people, thousands, over 13,000 downloads of that article. A number of people have awakened to the truth of that information and have been empowered to leave the Moorish foolishness alone and return to their ancestral culture, just like we've been able to free people from Christianity, Islam, Hebrewism, Judaism, pseudo-New Age spirituality, pseudo-Native American spirituality, pseudo-metaphysics through the Kutuntun, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, Uben Shang, the Ancestral Summons, and so forth. So we have those basic fundamental publications. We've also been publishing a number of articles recently dealing with specific issues that tend to crop up because the whites and their offspring have a homosexual, dissexual agenda that they try to force on the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut population. Of course, that's intertwined with their pseudo-religious practices, whether they label them exoteric or esoteric. They're all pure foolishness. They have no basis in reality, and we have no business embracing that idiocy. So we touch on specific subjects that have been creeping into the consciousness of our people through the direct contact with the whites and their offspring, or through their proxies or agents in the community. So for example, one of the more recent articles and series of articles, we've dealt with the most recent one, the origin of the term God, Neg or Nganga or is not Nigger, part 2. We also had part 1. We go into the etymological origin of the term God. A lot of people have been promoting a false concept. The black man is God, the black woman is God, foolishness like that, that we've learned from the whites and their offspring, whether it's white European males or white lesbian females. Either way, it's pure foolishness. And there are false etymologies put forward and pseudo-doctrines put forward that stream directly from the whites and their offspring that have been out here for decades, even going back to the previous century, that many of our people are picking up on now and trying to refashion, blacken up, and represent or represent falsely to our community. So we show the etymological origin of that term. Of course, if you look in the etymological dictionary, they will trace it back ultimately to the Proto-Indo-European root ga, or ga. And they will say it either means to pour, to invoke. So to pour meaning like as in to pour libation, ga, or ga meaning to invoke or to call, as in calling a prayer, chant, and so forth. As far as the whites and their offspring, understand those are the two possible roots. We show that those roots, those terms, are not Proto-Indo-European terms. They can be found directly in the language of ancient Kamit, which goes back tens of thousands of years prior to the first European or Eurasian in existence in the world. One of the titles of Amen is Gan Gan Or. Or means great. Ga means to cackle. Ga Ga means to cackle, cackle, meaning the great cackler. You will see that Amen is shown in the form of his sacred Achinebois sometimes, meaning animal totem, in the form of a male goose, which is a gander. And you'll see that Amen as well as Amenet, the great mother, take the form of the sacred divine goose, Amenet, and gander, Amen. And they cackle or emit sound vibrations at the beginning of creation to cause the dark waters and energy of Nun and Nunet to begin to vibrate so that they can create fertility. And then Amenet, as the great goose, develops the divine egg that will give birth to the sun. But first they cackle into the dark black substance of space, causes that energy to begin to vibrate so that they can produce and fertilize that great egg from which the sun will be born. Ga or gan means to cackle. So a goose cackling in the dark substance of space, just like you see a goose and a gander when they're mating, they begin to cackle. The male has a louder cackle, the female has a softer cackle. And when they begin to mate, they begin to cackle. The term for cackle or to shriek or to call out in ancient Kemet is gan, and sometimes it's doubled ganga. This is where you get ganga or, meaning the great ganga, the great cackler. Sometimes they prefix the N, the nasal N, so instead of saying gan, or, they say nganga or. Nganga is the same term. It's just the N is prefix. The root is gan, and the A is nasal, so it's not ga, it's gan. Ganga or, the great cackler. And ganga orit for Amenet, the great cackler on the female side. Now, nganga as a title of Amen is also used by the Bakongo people for a title of their ritual specialists, and they are called nganga, from the root ganga, meaning to emit sound vibrations in a ritual fashion. Incantations. Their incantations or their chants, ritual prayers, cause the energy begin to move and vibrate and affect a certain result. So just like the nganga in the Bakongo tradition cackles or chants or emits incantations, sound vibrations, emits energy to move matter, that's because the great ganga, the great nganga, the nganga or Amen, and the ganga orit, Amenet, did the same thing. Now when you see ga, meaning to cackle, to call, to emit sound vibrations, to emit sacred energy from the quote-unquote lips or from the mouth, to move matter, and you see that with the geese, you also see that with the ritual specialists, that's a call or an invocation. This is the true etymological root of the Proto-Indo-European term ga, meaning to invoke or to call. However, Ga in ancient Kamit also means to pour, and you will see the medut of a pot with the water energy and the electromagnetic wave energy streaming from the lips of the pot. It means to pour, Ga. So it means to pour. It also means to call or invoke. Just like the Proto-Indo-European terms that they claim to be the root of the term God, Ga means to pour, as in pouring a libation. Ga means to call or to invoke. You find both of these terms with the exact same meanings in ancient Kemet, but there's a cosmology that undergirds the terms. Again, Amen and Amenet as the great Ganga, Ganga Ur, Amen, Ganga Urit, Amenet. When they want to mate in order to create the universe, they begin to Nganga, to cackle. And they pour Ga, the sound vibrations, out of themselves, release that energy into the black substance of space. That black substance begins to vibrate. It begins to fuse. Amenet gets pregnant as the great goose. She fertilizes, that egg is fertilized by Amen, and then she gives birth to the sun. Now, Nganga is spelled in the Medutu N-G, N-G. And then the descriptive title, or, meaning the great, is added on sometimes. So you have Nganga or, but it's spelled without the vowels very often. N-G, N-G. Some people have seen that and thought it said neg, neg, or neg, negor, or negur, or nigger. That's pure foolishness. That's because they don't understand the language. It's not neg or, it's nganga or. That's why sometimes it's written with the prefixed nasal N, nganga, but sometimes the N is dropped and it's simply ganga or, from the root gan, meaning to cackle, to invoke, to call, and then ga, of course, meaning to pour. So that's the actual root. Now, we also show in the article, we have a two-part article series going into detail about all of that cosmology in much more detail than we're going through right now. We also have the title, there's a title of Het Heru. Today is Ptah, or Friday. In our Akhan culture, we call it Ptah, the Da or day of the Abosom, or the goddess Afi. She's the Abosom, or the goddess that governs the planet Afi, which in English is called Venus. In ancient Kemet, she's called Het Heru. But one of the titles of Het Heru, or Het Her, is Fai. So in our Akhan culture, which is Ivory Coast and Ghana, there are about 20 million Akhan people between Ivory Coast and Ghana, and then they were one of the largest groups from whom we were taken and enslaved in North America. So that's why you have many people who are drawn to the Akhan culture in the Western hemispheres, because that's where we come from. In the Akhan culture, Afi also has the title Chet Che. So you have Afi, Chet Che in Akhan, that comes from Fait and Het Her in ancient Kemet, talking about the goddess, the Abosom, the female divinity that operates through the planet Afi, or Venus. Now, one of the titles, praise names of Het Heru in ancient Kemet is Nhasi. It comes from the root Hesi or Hasi, and that can mean to be approved by a divinity, sacred, praised, lauded, one who is given accolades. It has to do with her nature and function as a sacred queen mother dealing with royalty. That's a title of hers, Nhasi. One of the praise names of Afi in the Akhan culture is Nhoso, and it means the same thing, one who is celebrated and so forth. One is prosperous, celebrated, and all these different things. Nhasi or Nhesi, and also Nhesu in ancient Kemet becomes Nhosu in Akhan. That term, however, in ancient Kemet is also a title for the Nubians, a certain group of Nubians in lower so-called Nubia or Knesset, Kanit. It's often written Nehesu, but it's really Nhesu or Nhasu. When you put the nasal N in front of the H, Nhasu sounds like Nhasu when it's pronounced. That's why in Akhan it's Nhasu. It's a title of the people, but it's also a title of Het Heru. It's a title of Het Heru in Kamit. It's a title of Het Heru or Chetcher in Akhan. It has to do with royalty. That's why Nhasu or Nkaso became Nagasa or Negasu in the Ethiopic language, and that's why they say Negesu or Nagasu. It's Ngasu, Nkasu. It comes directly from a title of Het Heru, the Queen Mother, title of royalty, one who is approved, celebrated by divinity. This is where you get Negas, Negas, Ngas, Ngasu, Ngasi, Nkasi, Nkasu, and so forth. It has nothing to do with the term nigger or nigga. That's pure foolishness. We have an article where we go into detail about that etymology and the cosmology that supports it. We also have the term Ntoro as vocalized in Akhan. In ancient Kamit, the term for divinity, male, is spelled Ntr. They didn't also often know how to vocalize it, so they would stick E's in between. Egyptologists would stick E's in between in order to approximate a vocalization. In the languages of Afuraitkaitnut, Africa, you will find the proper vocalizations for these terms. So NTR is not neter, and Akhan is pronounced Ntoro. The N is nasal, Ntoro, N-T-O-R-O. And in Akhan, Ntoro means a divinity that's inherited through your blood circle. It's a force in nature. It's also called an ejaboson, a divinity inherited through the father's blood circle, and then the female is Nton in Akhan, Ntorot, or N-T-R-T in Kamit. That's the divinity inherited through the female blood circle, the mother's blood circle, also called the Abusia boson in Akhan. So you have a divinity that's inherited through your mother's blood circle that's connected directly to you. You have a divinity or a deity that's inherited through your father's blood circle that's directly connected to you. Ntoro, Ntoron, Nton in Akhan, Ntoro, and Ntorot, or Neter, Netert in ancient Kamit. Neter, sometimes the T is a ch, so instead of Ntoro, it's Ntoro. What the Europeans did was take NTR, Inter, or Ntoro. They would say Neter, and that became nature. And this is where you get Mother Nature from. It has nothing to do with nigger or nigga. That's pure foolishness again. If you look at a title of Ra in ancient Kamit, if you look at the Book of the Cow of Heaven, sometimes they call it the destruction of mankind. There's an episode in that text where Ra directs Tahuti to come with him to a mountainous region away from the certain men and women who were engaged in disorder, because he wanted to discuss what he was going to do with this population, the small population of people who were engaging in disorder. The whole major part of the text is talking about the small population of people who engaged in disorder, and Ra sent Sekhmet, the goddess Sekhmet or Sechima, to go destroy those disordered men and women. But in one episode, Ra asked Tahuti to come up into the mountain region so he could discuss these things away from the eyes of the disordered individuals, so they would not see what was going on. When Ra went up into the mountain region and Tahuti went there with him, Ra took the form of a divinity of light and is called Ra-Aku or Ra-Ak, and that's his title. Of course, Tahuti is the great Ma'al-Keb, one who's true Ma'al of word, Keb, Ma'al-Keb. Ma'al-Keb became corrupt, also Ma'al-Keru, and he makes others Ma'al-Keru or true of word when they pass the test, when they pass the balancing of the heart against the feather after they're deceased and they're trying to go and be with Asar in the spirit realm. They have to pass that test, the weighing of the heart. If they pass that test, then they're declared by Tahuti to be Ma'al-Kher or Ma'al-Kher, true of word. He's able to declare people true of word, the spirit's true of word, because he's the original Ma'al-Kher as the voice or spokesperson, male of Ra and Amen and Ra'et and Amenet. He's the spokesperson, he's the mouthpiece, he's the divine wisdom. So he can declare others Ma'al-Kher because he is the original Ma'al-Kher. So Ma'al-Kher goes up on the mountain to talk to Ra. And Ra takes the form of a divine light. This is Ma'al-Sheh or Moshe or Moses going up on the mountain to talk to the God who takes the form of a divine light. Now we go into detail about that in the Kukutuntun, the ancestral jurisdiction. But the key here is Ra takes on the form Ra-Aku or Ra-Ku or Ra-Ka. That title is repeated in the Akhan tradition. It's also a title repeated in ancient black India before the Europeans came over. Of course, Ra is symbolized by the serpent swallowing its tail. He's a spirit that operates through the sun. He created the sun along with Ra'et, and she's also symbolized as a serpent swallowing her tail. As Ra-Ku or Ra-Ka, he's called Da-Ka in Akhan, in certain Akhan dialects, Da-Ka, Dan-Ka, Nan-Ka, the great serpent that swallows its tail, the great circular serpent. Nan-Ka or Edanga in Akhan is Nan-Ka or Naga in India. This is where you get Naga from. It's Ra-Ka, Ra-Ka. This is where it comes from. Ra-Ka becomes Da-Ka, Nan-Ka in Akhan. Da, of course, in Vodun, the rainbow serpent that swallows its tail, the creator and creatress of the universe, and so forth. So we go into detail about that in our article in Yonkumpon and Yonkunton, Ra and Ra'et, where we show that the title of Ra, when he goes up on the mountain and takes the form of a divine light, Ra-Ka became Da-Ka, Dan-Ka in Akhan, Na-Ka or Naga in ancient India, pre-Aryan India. It has nothing to do with the term Nigger, Nigga, or anything. Nigga is just a mispronunciation of nigger, and nigger is just a mispronunciation of Negro, and Negro goes even back further, and we show the actual etymological origin of the term Negro and Necro, and it goes directly to ancient Kamit, Nika. And first they will show that the Proto-Indo-European root is Nik or Nika, meaning to lack, to want, negative, afflicted, and so forth. You'll find that same root in ancient Kemet, Nek, Nekah, meaning to lack, to want, negative, afflicted, foes or enemies who are crushed to death. That's what a Nekah or Nekah, this is the root of the term Nika or Negro, comes from. It comes directly from Nikah in Kemet, meaning foes or enemies who are crushed to death. So all of the fools who are out here misinforming our people deliberately with these foolish etymologies about the term nigger, nigga, and so forth, and trying to associate it with the Nagas, trying to associate it with Netcher, trying to associate it with Neg-or, which is actually Gangan, or trying to associate it with Negas or Negas, which is actually Nkasa. We go into detail about that in a series of different articles, and we lay it out in detail so it's irrefutable information. Anybody can look at the information, download it for free, and then look up the references, the linguistic references, and so forth. We also have a few articles exploding the myths dealing with this dissexual, homosexual deviance that's manifesting in some of the pseudo-literature as well as videos and so forth in the community. the whites and their offspring have always tried to associate dissexuality with ancient Kemet. So for example, they use about 7 different references of inscriptions from ancient Kemet, writings, inscriptions, out of the tens of thousands of writings and inscriptions all over ancient Kemet. For thousands of years, they found about 7 different inscriptions or writings that they would like to associate with homosexuality, dissexuality, and we use dissexuality, we use the root dis, meaning not, because when you're engaged in that activity, it's not sexuality at all, it's insanity, it's perversion, it's deviance, it's filth, it's degenerate. So you're not engaged in dissexuality, in homosexual, or any form of sexuality when you engage in these practices, whether you're a male or female. So we use the term dissexuality because it's more appropriate, because sexuality is not actually happening. So what they've tried to do is force this perverse culture of theirs on the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community. They've been trying to do that for thousands of years, and of course today, through the whites and their offspring, through their representative, who is Obama, the child of his white mother, a spirit of disorder, her as well as him. Of course, he's in position to make brainwashed Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut embrace this degeneracy and put a brown face, although a white spirit, but a brown face on this degeneracy, hopefully that it will lull us to sleep. So we go into detail. For example, we have an article called Set and Anat, the datings of the contendings of Heru and Set. Dissexuality, homosexuality was never accepted in ancient Kemet. This is one of the major texts, one of the few texts that the whites and their offspring used to attempt to prove falsely that dissexuality, homosexuality was embraced in ancient Kemet. We call it the datings of the contendings of Heru and Set because we show that once the whites and their offspring invaded and infiltrated into Kemet, then that's when dissexuality, homosexuality shows up in writings that they influence. The contendings of Heru and Set clearly show that. There's so-called Semitic deities. Of course, there's no such thing as a Semite because there was no such individual as Noah and any sons. There was no Shem and so forth. But that terminology that they use, there's Semitic deities incorporated as daughters of Ra in the text, meaning that the so-called Semitic speakers, or the whites and their offspring, had already invaded, infiltrated in the northern part of Kemet. They had infiltrated to the extent and became entrenched enough to the extent that they had woven 2 of their so-called divinities, forms of ancient divinities from ancient Kemet, but corrupted by the whites and their offspring and represented to us as Anat and Astarte. And those 2 so-called Semitic divinities, they show up in the text as daughters of Ra. The reason they're daughters of Ra in that text is because the so-called Semitic speakers, the invaders, had infiltrated, taken up residence in the northern part of Kemet, and their culture became entrenched to a certain extent in those regions that they invaded or infiltrated. And that's when you see the so-called dissexual, homosexual writings pop up. But we also show that they changed the text, they changed roles of the divinities, and took one role for a goddess out, and then stuck Heru in that role, and then forced a dissexual relationship that didn't exist in the original text. So we go into detail about that. We also talk about Nehem and Kanum Hetep, the 2 identical twins that they attempt to say is the first representation of a homosexual relationship. In reality, Nehem, Kanum, and Kanum Hetep are identical twins. They have wives, they have children, they are children of the divinity Kunwimu or Kunum, the deity that conjoins the body and the soul on the potter's wheel and fashions it in the womb. He is a patron deity or Ntoro of twins. That's why they have his name as part of their names, Nehem, Kanum, and Kanum Hetep. So in our article dealing with them, we show that in detail. And then we have the article dealing with Ptah, instruction 35 of the maxims of Ptah. This is a particular instruction. Some people call it instruction 32, where the whites and their offspring again attempt to force dissexuality in our culture. In reality, Ptah is talking about in that specific instruction about the prepubescent sexual taboo. He's directing his son that it's a taboo, meaning it's divinely hated for a male to engage in sexual intercourse with a prepubescent female. Even if the male has gone through his manhood training and he's 16 years old, 17 years old, as soon as he completes his manhood training, he's ready for a wife in many parts of traditional Afuraitkaitnut. Same is true in ancient Kamit. Sometimes in rural areas, for example, there's research that we publish in the article. In Ghana, for example, the women in the rural areas, the girls, their average age of the onset of menarche was 15.4 years. Some of the girls would be 16 years old, 17 years old before they had their first cycle. And once that first cycle happened, then they would go through womanhood training. And then after their womanhood training, they would be considered women, and then they could marry. So if a 17-year-old male saw a 16-year-old female, and she hadn't gone through womanhood training because she hadn't had her first cycle yet, then she would still be considered a child. She would still be considered prepubescent, even though she looked like every other female who had gone through her training and looked like every other 16-year-old. So it would be taboo for that young man to try to have sexual intercourse with that young woman. So we go into detail about it's a prepubescent sexual taboo. The whites and their offspring try to translate the term hemet kart, meaning a female child. You should not have sex with a female child, meaning a prepubescent girl. They try to translate that as a woman boy and talk about homosexual relationship with at night in the dark, in the shadows, with a womanly boy or a womanly man. It's pure idiocy. They know it's idiocy, but we've exposed it, and we're the first group or individuals to fully translate that text properly, black or white. For over 100 years, these people have been mistranslating this text. Even the black scholars, some of them have just left it alone and said it was a difficult text, and they just overlooked it and didn't really push the issue because they didn't understand how it was translated. We translated the text properly and gave the full cultural context for why we were able to translate that text properly. So that's just another text that we've recently published. So these different articles we published, they're on the website. These issues will be part of our upcoming presentations in the cities that we will be coming to next. So if you look at our GUAMU KASA page, we will be laying out, you'll see all of the previous places that we have gone, the things that we talked about, links to the books where you can download the free books. You can download all of the articles that we just spoke about very briefly, that we just summarized. All of these are free downloads. We have videos on most of the articles on the website where we go into detail. We spend about 1 to 2 hours going into detail, page by page, on these various articles. We will be doing more videos dealing with detailing this information that we just spoke about very briefly. Those will be coming up as well. So you can download all that information from the website. And then we will also be posting the upcoming dates in the different cities. If you would like for us to come and present in your area, just go to the GUAMU KASA page and contact us via email at Aakhuamuman@odwirafo.com. We do not charge a speaker's fee for doing presentations. We also stipulate that the attendees to the events are not charged a fee for admission, and they are not charged a registration fee. Our people must be able to come and listen and learn about their ancestral culture without being charged. So those are our stipulations. We also present to Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only. So we can talk about that. Just send us an email if you would like to schedule an event in your area. We also have, of course, we want to give away the free books. We've been doing that. If you would like to support our free books and workshops for Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut movement, we say thank you, Yerase. We thank you for your support. You can go to our Achedie page, www.odwirafo.com, Achedie page.html. You can make a donation, contribution. Achedie means donation, contribution, gift. At any amount assists us to continue to give free workshops, free publications, the soft cover versions, as well as take time to do the research to put this information out. We also have our services, for example, Gwamu Kasa, which is substance abuse abstinence through the ritual practices of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit ancestral religion. We can get ourselves off of these substances. We've assisted a number of people, whether it's alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, these various different illicit substances, these controlled substances. There are ways through practicing ancestral religion and engaging the process, engaging your kra, engaging your soul, your divine consciousness, your ori inu, your ka, your selido. There are ways, and connecting with your nananom and samampo, your ancestresses and ancestors of Afuraka, Afuraikai, your aku, akutu, egungun. There are ways to reconnect with them so they can help to strip that urge for these controlled substances out of your spirit. So we've had that method, we established that method, and we share that information. Of course, we share it freely with the community. We also deal with a similar method to assist our people, typically our sisters, coming out of these domestic violence situations, domestic abuse situations. So we call that Akuma Dime, which means domestic abuse neutralization, where we're able to lift ourselves out of those kind of situations and break that cycle. There's a ritual method, there's a similar ritual method to break ourselves out of that cycle as we use for the substance abuse abstinence. It's reconnecting with your kra, your indwelling divinity, the force that's assigned to you that draws you in the right direction. There's a ritual mean to realign with that force so you can empower yourself to engage in harmonious thoughts, intentions, and actions and make good decisions on a consistent basis and lift yourself out of these negative situations. So these services are free, the publications are free, the videos are free, the audio is free, and so forth. So if you would like to contribute to this effort, especially with the free workshops, as well as the free soft cover versions of the book, again, you can go to our Chedie page, Yerase, we thank you. Keep looking at the GUAMU KASA page, keep checking for updates. We will be listing the various cities that will be coming up, the different states very soon. And if you have any questions, again, please contact us. And we say, Yerase, thank you, and we will be giving you an update in the next few weeks. Yerase.